Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Sarah Upside Down here. Um, going to start doing a word of the week. Well, if I actually have time to get on here and do a word of the week. But my word of the week starting this week is Alexithymia. And if you haven't been to my channel before, I put out content for autism, ADHD, different learning disabilities, and mental health, and sort of all how some of that connects with each other. So this is one that I would say is definitely like a mixture, but it's something that a lot of autistics struggle with, or at least I've seen or met that struggle with this, and that can be for different reasons. But I'm going to go ahead and get right into it and start letting you know kind of the information on what alexithymia is, how that relates to me, and how I've kind of seen that in other people that I know and not exactly know what to do. So I'm going to, today I thought I actually wasn't going to have notes, but let me just say it's a big deal for me to be on a live video because I always have to pre-plan and like mastermind the whole situation so that I can get on here and I'm like a little more prepared. Anyways, so alexithymia, the clinical term, is defined as inability to recognize emotions and their subtleties and textures. And that also can be difficulty distinguishing emotions and body sensations, whether that's good, bad, like it's just too much going on, like you're just not sure what's going on there. Not being able to word what that is, basically. Limited understanding of what causes feelings. Like, trying to move this paper over here. There we go. Hey, I didn't know if anyone's going to see me live because this was somewhat last minute and then all of a sudden planned all together. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, back into it. Difficulty recognizing facial cues in others, limited or rigid imagination, constricted style of thinking, hypersensitive to physical sensations, and detached or tentative connection to others. I mean, I'm sure by just listing some of those, if you're autistic or you may think you're autistic or you're identified or whatever, whole process, even some autistics that have received diagnosis or have done research, like this just isn't one that's really out there in the community. Like, I feel like a lot of us struggle with putting putting words to the things that we struggle with. I know that was a big one for me. And so I think me kind of just getting on here and putting, certain words or terms may help you to kind of dissect that, I guess that's a good word, and figure out what those emotions are. That's just how I started. It's like from the bottom and then just, kind of go back to the front, whatever. So yeah, a little history is that it's been long associated to a range of psychological disorders and neurological, from autism, depression, schizophrenia, and that's just to name a few. So it's not for, someone that is not on the spectrum could also struggle with this, but I think a lot more on the spectrum do, just because of how we're wired in a sense already, at least for me. And I know, like, just people close to me. It's very challenging for those who struggle with this alexithymia to cope with coexisting psychological disorders because their innate vulnerability to understanding themselves and others complicates recovery. So it makes it really hard when you don't know what that is, to, you don't know what you're feeling, or you've just honestly suppressed it so long you just don't even care to. And I've seen that in people also. Well, not go there. So, and I mean, I've been in that position myself too. It's just like, you don't know your own emotions or what they are exactly. So how are you supposed to like change some of those things or work on them, or just be accepting to some of the ones that, it may just be how you are. Once the distortions are cleared away, and this article came, I'll post the link below, but it came from a site that's kind of trying to explain examples. It says, once the distortions are cleared away, most patients who come to the emergency room tell stories that seem to grow out of the problems they claim to have and the pain they claim to feel. These stories reverberate with emotions congruent to their themes. But occasionally, patients who clearly have problems and are in great emotional pain tell non-congruent stories. Yeah, that's me. Oopsie. Well, I mean, I admit to, like, actually going through stuff and having these issues now, because it's been like a journey or whatever. But yeah, I've been in that position. And sometimes when I'm talking to my therapist, like, I'm just going around the bush over here, whatever, and it's not purposeful. I just, like, I have no idea what that emotion is. I have no idea what's going on. And so she has to kind of like cognitive therapy me back over here and try to get back to where we were and discuss that a little bit, because I do struggle with alexithymia myself. But one thing is that, like, everybody kind of struggles with it somewhat differently, and some people may show different presentations a little bit more, and some people may have certain situations where it goes on a little bit more. So anyways, they will insist they have no problems, that life is fine, and that they have no idea what is wrong. Their story is that they have no story. These patients seem unable to find words necessary to describe their feelings. So, yeah, that's a thing. I'm actually having that issue right now. I'm like, what am I feeling on that? Probably a lot of things, but I think even as autistics, like, we may have a lot of feelings and emotions about stuff, but it's like very internal, or we may not know how to put it into words, like, too, and then other factors come into that, and I think it's more of an extreme of that. So a little history in this, because yay for history, or maybe I'll bore you for a second. In 1972, Peter Sinov, you know what, I'm not even going to try, Sivnios, introduced to psychiatry the term alexithymia, which derived from the Greek, yay Greek, literally means having no words for emotions. A equals lack, lexis equals word, and thymos equals emotions. Alexithymia is not a diagnosis, but a construct useful for characterizing patients who seem not to understand the feelings they obviously experience. Patients who seem to lack the words to describe their feelings to others. Identifying this deficit in expressivity is important, because doing so gives the children a leg up in making a diagnosis and charting a therapeutic course. So, I mean, and that's for adults too, though, because a lot of us don't know that that's something we go through. I would have never guessed. Like, I don't know. Words are just so great sometimes. It, like, helps put some closure to that. Yes, yeah, okay, I can definitely relate to that. Or I may explain all these other things, and it's just not even what I'm actually trying to say. Like, it's just still not really being able to necessarily relate to them or relate to my own emotions. So yeah, that can be frustrating. But good thing is if you're seeing that, then you can possibly go through the rest of the process and maybe learn how to identify what those are, because I think helping to learn about being autistic or possibly being autistic and stuff, like, it kind of takes you down a journey where you can learn to identify some of those things. But just advice, like, not rushing into it either and trying to put too much on your plate, because that can be tough. So many individuals with alexithymia have somatic complaints, considerable evidence links prolonged states of emotional arousal and the physiological arousal with susceptibility to certain disorders. Clearly, someone who cannot verbally express as well as physically, express negative emotions will have trouble discharging and neutralizing these emotions, physiologically as well as physically. All feelings, whether normal or pathological, are ultimately body feelings. Those with alexithymia lack a lived understanding of what they experience emotionally. From the perspective of development, alexithymia implies a glitch in the process that permits the expression of feelings in words that capture the body's involvement in these feelings. And that's not to be confused with them not having feelings. That's not what it is. It's not necessarily that they don't have feelings or that, we're just a bunch of unempathetic jerks and whatever. It's that sometimes, we have all that going on in there, but we don't know how to get it out or say it in a way where it's going to be understood. So we know ourselves to be we know ourselves depends on heavily on the story we tell ourselves about who we are. The inability to express emotions verbally implies a deficit interior life. Inevitably, those who cannot match words to feelings will live out that deficit in their contacts with others as well. To have no words for one's inner experience is to live marginally for oneself and for others. Now, and I get what they're saying about that. That'll take me a minute to wrap my brain around. But, and I've seen this in, my spouse and other people, and just that very flat. And it is hard because even someone who struggles with that in my own way, I have no idea what's going on with them. Like, nothing's going on. It's like on the outside. And I am like able to consider differences from people and stuff. But I think when you like live in that situation, or like you're constantly around someone else, it's just sort of like, so where do we go from, like, so do you actually like this or not? I mean, because I can't really tell, it just needs to be real out there for me sometimes. And I think that we're both that way. But then if we don't know that about ourselves or each other, then we're just going to constantly be thinking each other is being a jerk. That's what it comes down to, really. So I want to read y'all's messages real quick. True is being tested each time I tell her to stand for whatnot. She says he's not. Ugh. I went through the same thing with my daughter. I'm going through some stuff still with my son with some of that. And I would say one thing about me as an autistic is my perseverance is like, I would say it's a talent, that could also be me, but like, I just, I don't give up. And I think that, if you see those things and you see stuff going on and your kids, just, keep going and keep doing what you're doing with that, but also be open-minded to, other stuff that could be going on, whether it be emotional or something else. And I'm not saying it, because I don't know your kids, but usually I can spot some of the stuff in other people's kids, and, I want to be able to tell them. But sometimes you just, you can't do that, I guess. So, but yeah, I hate to say it's a fight, but it's a good fight. And if, you really need to have that help for your kids, or you see that they may struggle and you're seeing these different things about them, and some beautiful and some hard, or they're just being misunderstood. And for me, it's my son getting in trouble sometimes at school, which isn't all the time, but a lot of stuff, like, I could see possibly why that is, and then others is that he may just be getting in trouble, um, but they don't look at some of that. So yeah, there is arrogance out there on some of these things. Or I would say ignorance, maybe. But I didn't stop. I went to a new doctor. We switched doctors. We went to someone else. I had patience for the ones before. It's not like I wasn't trying to see their side. They just weren't helping, and we moved on. And I thought it'd be easier for my kids than me, and I got my stuff done and my diagnosis and all that before them, which honestly is sad. So even though I don't know you and your kids or you guys myself, it's one of those things that I'm like feeling internally about. I'll say in the Alexithymia area, I'm just sort of like, well, you don't want to know what's actually going on. Because it can be a struggle, and it's just not made easy. But just keep going, keep trying with it. So yeah, some autistics' actions or expressions can be shut down over time, and later being even more possible to cause alexithymia. It's not like some of the behaviors and things, like whenever they're constantly getting suppressed or someone's annoyed with them. Me, for instance, I suppressed my stims my entire life, and so like I'm trying to figure out which ones help me, and like what I can do, like what I can do with my energy to like get it out, But just like suppressing stims, suppressing your expressions, like the things that you do, or like you're just annoying people and stuff like that, you start to hold that in, and then you just are not showing that anymore. You just kind of lose that personality, that was childlike and fun, and yeah. But yeah, I think about that, happening with some people, and a lot of us autistics just, we have our different traits, and we do things kind of different, and we're kind of just out of this world. I mean, little fun aliens running around as kids. And so a lot of the things we do, not only stimming, but just how we communicate and things like that, are just not necessarily accepted. And so, suppressing those and stuff, that's probably why, even though there isn't like a million things to back up what I'm saying or the other autistics that are kind of put this stuff out there, it would make sense that more of the community in the autism world and stuff would have alexithymia. And it really does make a lot of sense. Some other things about alexithymia is having flat affect. So like atypical facial expressions, flat tone, speaking without an expression or no tone. A lot of autistics can have flat facial expression, not showing much emotion outwardly. So for me, I got made fun of for a while. Like growing up, I think the girls would just be right in front of me just making jokes, and my eyes are hurting. But that my expression wasn't changing. Like I wasn't showing any expression like that. It just stayed the same. And as you can see now, I'll laugh and smile, and a lot of those are probably coping mechanisms, honestly, for anxiety or being nervous, whatever. But I was just like, and I probably still like was expressing things inside that I, felt as much as others and stuff like that. But like, I think I had that even before some things were suppressed. I think it was just part of like my particular autism with that. It's not that I'd never expressed things, but it just shows how oblivious I was. I didn't pick up that they were joking around about me or whatever. I just like laughed with them. It was like, yeah, you're right. I don't show any expressions like an idiot. Like I look back on some of those times and I'm just like, how did I not pick up that they were totally making fun of me in those moments? So I've sort of like went the opposite way. I was made fun of for that, and so now I show more expression because I feel like that's what people want from you, and then they don't want as much. And I'm sorry, I just can't find a balance with this. It's just too much. um, so yeah, so people that struggle with this may still have plenty of emotion, um, and not be able to really put it out where everybody can see that that's what they're going through. Basically, outward isn't always what is inward. And I struggle with this a lot with someone very close to me. He's very flat, has very flat affect, no expression in his voice or showed emotion. And for me personally, I just struggle in new environments or where I may be shutting down to a particular conversation, or there's too much, like there's a lot of sensory going around, and I'm very like sensitive to sensory. And so I kind of just all shut down. So it's like a mixture of my autism, and I think just also those are good sensations that I'm feeling, but it's too much. There's a lot going on. I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not going to do anything. But with this person, I've had to learn sorry, I'm like notes, tired. So I've had to learn, even struggling with some of these things myself, that he isn't unempathetic, but everything is inside and may not be completely understood. And he may not understand himself or needs more process time, or just not understanding what those emotions are. So like him being able to step back and have the time to process, I guess, what he's feeling. And even though I have to do that, like I feel like just as autistic, like for instance, like I'm sensitive to sound, and we'll take this back to an example of stimming. And like I need a stim and I need to make a sound. My kids do this too. But like if the other person is doing it, then they're getting annoyed because like they're sensitive to that sound, but they need, so it's just like this like back and forth thing. Well, I feel like it's the same with me and him with these emotional, just not seeing that in each other or ourselves, or just like not catching it like in a typical way, whatever. So anyways, I just struggle with being confused on why the emotion or excitement isn't displayed. And sometimes I feel like he's like doing it, but it's not very genuine. It's like he like had to try to do that. And it's just not natural for him. I can tell that he's struggling, and it's not super natural for him to do that. Like just doing that, keeping that all in for so many years, then trying to like present it on the outside. It's just like it feels uncomfortable. But yeah, it's presented differently in different people. I don't necessarily always do it that way, but I think also for men in particular, like they're not really expected to like show their emotions and express those things, and they just need to be tough. And like coming from certain families, I think that's even more of a thing. And so later on, especially if you're on the spectrum and you don't know how to express those things or necessarily relate with others, then it's not that there's something wrong with you for not being able to do that, but it's hard to connect, I think, in some of those ways. And that's where it kind of goes into the empathy area. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So it can affect cognitive empathy, like theory of mind, stuff like that. Many autistics say they struggle with that area. So I think there's affective empathy and cognitive empathy, and most of us struggle with the cognitive empathy. That's why a lot of the types of therapy that I do help me a lot. It's not that we don't have it, we just don't see it in the same way or see it right away, or it's just not how most of the world, I guess, would handle some of those things. So anyways, yeah, so we struggle more with cognitive empathy, and it's hard to see another's perspective, or basically what that means is standing in another person's shoes. So like we have a hard time. I mean, I've definitely practiced like throughout my life, and I think that that's not as much like I can put myself in someone else's shoes. I know that's harder for, I think, people that have suppressed and had alexithymia, some in a different way, and just also struggles with that as being on the spectrum to the extent. And like I said, people are different. So, they might do it in different ways. But alexithymia makes it hard to guess others' emotions as well. So it's like we are struggling over here trying to figure out ours, and we don't know enough about ourselves, or, I mean, like our emotions, like what they are. But yeah. So anyways, how are we supposed to figure out what other people's are when we're like oblivious to ours? I mean, it took me a while to figure that out. It's not that we don't want to care for what they're saying or like what they're trying to say or express to us. It's just we don't, maybe, I mean, for me, I'll talk about it. For me, I don't know how to take it in or process that. And I think that's partly being autistic and alexithymia. Again, it connects a lot. So some of the therapies that can help and that people get help with is cognitive behavioral therapy. My therapist, I think, does a lot of that type of stuff with me. I mean, she didn't say it right out. I figured it out later because I was like, this is really working. And this is the longest I've been in therapy and I haven't fired you yet. So, I mean, it's got to be doing something. And it turns out that it's because I needed to know what my emotions are and how to look at things from other people's perspective. I think I just guessed most of the time and thought I was right. I'm not saying I'm never right. I'm just saying that I thought I was right a lot of the time, and I was maybe not some. So, oops. Another good therapy is dialectical behavioral therapy. It's helpful. Both of those are helpful to encourage the person to understand and experience what their own emotions are and others. This is the most of what, like I said, what my therapy is. And besides self-work, and not understanding others in general. So just kind of being like from another planet, sort of. I mean, it's hard to understand people anyways. And then, you just also can't really understand why they're feeling a certain way, or you may come at them with like a solution and things like that. And it's like, oh, wait, I should probably let you feel your emotions first. Yeah, my husband and I both do that to each other too. It's like, we'll figure it out one of these days. So another good things, and both of these I've looked into actually doing myself and teaching, is art therapy and music therapy. Both of these have like I've looked into a lot because I like doing art and stuff, but then I realized I probably wouldn't be like the greatest teacher. So, on that note, but as an autistic, I need to stimulate in certain ways in order to calm down and make sense of my thoughts and emotions. So, doing activities and like one that I actually enjoy, which is not like, like a lot of people's exercise or activities. Like I like to do random stuff like rock climbing and, kind of extreme things or dancing or whatever. But whatever one you choose, find one you like, and then afterwards, then try to think about what's going on. Then try to think about what you're feeling, what you're thinking, whatever at that point, because like you've like chilled the heck out, basically. So you can process that information, you can process those feelings and emotions a little bit better. Like I'll just keep going all day and not processing all day long, some of the stuff that I need to. And then, sometimes that could be dangerous too, because that may lead to a meltdown, and you might have one anyways if you're me. But like you can try to find different ways where you can understand what you're feeling and help to understand maybe what others are a little bit better. Another tip is to try journaling. I'm not really big on writing. I have some things in that area that make it a little bit harder learning wise and stuff, and motor skills or whatever. But it does help to get stuff out on paper and to have fun with it, not just like writing your day-to-day stuff. And then try graphic novels, animes, role play. I've been trying to do that a lot more, like to express myself and to like, dressing a different characters, like just kind of trying to experience some of that stuff again, because when you can like put yourself in another character, you can maybe learn better to understand what other people's feelings are. Reading, watching, reading like, fantasy books, or watching, cartoons, whatever is in your area of interest, to continue to learn, like when you're reading and you're seeing pictures and all that kind of stuff, like you're like in the stories, you're in the movie, you're in the show, whatever, and you're pretending to be this one, that one, whatever, and like you're kind of being able to relate to these characters more. If you can do that there, then it can drag it out from your little world and put it over here. But tips on what people may do or what may help when they're with someone that's having alexithymia, and like how to kind of like, I guess, go about that, is be accepting to responses that are not typical, and just respect them as much as you can. Don't take it personally. Don't expect a certain reaction. Don't doubt they care for you. They do, but it may take them a while to work on it, expressing it anyways, and may not, or may not at all, and understanding those people helps. So, I mean, just lowering the expectations, because, well, in reality, we just can't control people, and we can't sometimes control ourselves, and it helps to start with us. Like, I know, like, I wouldn't be able to even try to give someone else advice or get frustrated with them, which I still do, because it turns out I am human, although I do have alien blood type. But if you have expectations of a reaction from them, you're kind of already setting them up for failure and you up for frustration. I'll just put it that way. There's your blunt answer to solve all your problems. Just kidding. But I realize when I have those expectations, yes, I was talking about my husband. Shh. But when I do have those expectations and they come around, and I'm the one on the other side, I'm the one that's like wanting expression. Oh, yeah, that doesn't really go very well in my mind, because I'm like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you excited? I'm so totally excited. I'm excited. This is my special interest. Listen to all these things, and then like do something cool like this, Yeah, that doesn't ever happen. And like, I've still somewhat had these unrealistic expectations that like he's gonna do that or something. But but then expecting that from me too. I mean, it goes both ways, with people. Like, it's just very unnatural for me to do. It's like I want to compliment someone, or I see something that's, they're wearing this different or whatever, but I'm just like, I really have to, like, it's very forced, on expressing how I feel about that. I'm a thinker. I'm working on the other. Yeah, I think in a lot of in the autism world and in just different issues or emotional things and stuff like that or sensory processing or anything else, is just lowering expectations on the person or ourselves, even, because we tend to have like way too high expectations for ourselves and for others, and we don't always we get frustrated about how they express or what they're doing or not expressing, or when they're irritated about something. But then, when we're going through that, like, we want to be accepted and stuff like that. So, I think it's just working on trying to be equal in our relationships